The most expensive nuclear power plant ever built on Earth almost never turned on. It started at $14 billion, but the final bill has now spiraled past $36.8 billion. That's a staggering $20 billion over budget. The company that designed it went bankrupt, safety documents went missing by the thousands, people went to prison, and the project became a decade-long crisis. So how did America's most broken megaproject somehow survive? And was it even worth it? Here's the full story, from the perfect plan that fell apart to why they couldn't walk away, to what all those billions actually bought. To understand how a project becomes the most expensive on Earth, we have to go back to 2006. This is the Vogtle electric generating plant in Georgia. Back then, its primary owner, Georgia Power, wasn't managing a $36.8 billion crisis. They were pitching a $14 billion solution. The plan, backed by their parent company Southern Company, was simple. Build 2 massive nuclear reactors using a standardized design that would provide clean, reliable power for 80 years. Along with a few smaller local utility partners, Georgia Power promised it would be online by 2016. It was supposed to be easy, but there was a massive problem the planners ignored. The United States had forgotten how to build nuclear plants. Because the US hadn't built a reactor from scratch in over 30 years, the know-how was gone. The nuclear engineers, the master welders, and the construction managers who knew how to pour nuclear-grade concrete had all retired. In their place, software and consultants who thought digital models could replace decades of hands-on experience. They were wrong. The centerpiece of this easy plan was a reactor called the AP1000. Designed by a company called Westinghouse. Westinghouse was a legendary name in American industry, and they marketed the AP1000 as the Lego of nuclear power. Instead of building everything on site, giant modular sections would be built in specialized factories and simply snapped together in Georgia. It looked perfect on paper, but there was a hidden risk. While the company was great at design, they had never actually managed a construction project of this magnitude and complexity before. When construction started, the instructions weren't even finished. Workers were building from incomplete drawings that kept changing. Then came 2011. The Fukushima nuclear disaster in Japan changed global safety standards overnight. US regulators demanded additional protections against flooding and power loss. These were reasonable demands, but they arrived after construction had already started. This forced late-stage redesigns of critical safety structures, and every change triggered new reviews and months of delay. Despite being called standardized, each version of the AP1000 ended up being customized for local rules, meaning the promised economies of scale never appeared. But the unfinished drawings were only the beginning. When the theory of Lego-style building met the reality of a massive construction site, the project quickly descended into a physical disaster. The modular components were supposed to be manufactured off-site to save time, but the factory work was so shoddy that almost every single module had to be reworked. Instead of just snapping them together, Georgia Power actually had to set up new factories on site at Plant Vogtle, just to fix the mistakes made in the original ones. Huge prefabricated modules arrived off by just a few inches. In nuclear construction, where parts must line up perfectly for safety, that is a catastrophe. Beyond the fit, the quality control was non-existent. Component failure rates hit a staggering 80% because parts were left uncovered and exposed to the weather without any chain of custody. Other modules arrived with missing paperwork or incomplete weld inspections. Because safety rules are so strict, workers couldn't legally install them. At one point in 2021, it was discovered that 25,000 required safety documents were either missing or incomplete. Fixing these mistakes in a nuclear plant is not quick or flexible. Every fix requires fresh inspections, and nothing moves forward until the paperwork catches up. The result? A project that was essentially being built twice. Problems followed the project from the very start because the team building Vogtle was constantly shifting. Westinghouse was in charge of the design, and they partnered with the Shaw Group to handle construction. But the Shaw Group had almost no experience building nuclear plants. Then Shaw was bought by another company, Chicago Bridge and Iron, usually called CB&I. Every time ownership changed, work slowed down. Behind the scenes, the management failure was even more fundamental. For years, Southern Nuclear and a succession of contractors, including Westinghouse, CB&I, and Bechtel, failed to create an integrated project schedule. Without this master plan, the massive workforce of 9,000 workers was poorly organised. In the chaos, crews were often either left idle or literally in each other's way, leading to a productivity nightmare where every single day of work resulted in an average of 1 day of delay. Engineers call these critical path problems, but on the ground it felt like the project was frozen. At the same time, regulators were not backing off. Even small changes triggered new reviews, adding more time, more documents, and more delays. By the mid-2000s, the project was barely holding together. Then, in 2017, it hit a catastrophic breaking point. Westinghouse, the very company designed to lead this nuclear renaissance, filed for bankruptcy after losing billions of dollars. Plant Vogtle was a primary reason for their collapse. At that moment, the project reached a crossroads. In South Carolina, a twin project using the same design was immediately abandoned after leaders realized the costs were untenable. Investigations later revealed a massive fraud. Westinghouse and utility executives had lied about costs and progress to keep the project going. Executives were later prosecuted and sentenced to prison, and utilities paid major financial settlements. According to investigative reports, similar behavior occurred in Georgia, but there's been no criminal accountability. Despite this scandal, Georgia Power made a different choice. Even though their partner had collapsed and the project was in shambles, they decided to double down. To finish the job, they scrapped the original fixed-price protections, shifting nearly all the remaining financial risk directly onto the public. But why did they keep going when everyone else was walking away? The answer isn't just about finishing what you started, it's about how the money was structured. Under Georgia's unique utility laws, Georgia Power was allowed to collect a construction surcharge from customers long before the plant ever produced a single kilowatt of power. This meant money was flowing into the company regardless of the delays. In fact, because the utility is allowed to earn a guaranteed profit on the capital they invest, the report found that Georgia Power amassed record profits of $17 billion during the construction years. Essentially, the system incentivized the spend. Without a dedicated consumer utility council to fight for residential families, over 88% of these costs fell on regular households. For the owners, finishing the project wasn't just the least bad option, it was a guaranteed way to keep the profits flowing. This is what experts call regulatory capture, where the rules are written to benefit the monopoly, not the people paying the bills. When Vogtle Units 3 and 4 were first approved, the price tag was around $14 billion. By the time the dust settled, the total cost had climbed to over $36.8 billion. Reactor 3 finally entered service in 2023, and Reactor 4 followed in April 2024, marking the end of a construction saga that lasted nearly 15 years. So what did all that money actually buy? Each of the 2 new reactors produces roughly 1,100 megawatts of electricity. Together they generate enough carbon-free power to supply around 1 million homes. Unlike solar or wind, this power runs 24 hours a day, rain or shine. In fact, Plant Vogtle is now the largest nuclear power plant in the United States. But for the average Georgia family, the clean energy comes with a dirty price tag. Residential electricity rates increased a total of 23.7% to pay for these 2 reactors. On top of that, the average household paid over $1,000 through a special construction surcharge between 2009 and 2023, long before the plant produced a single kilowatt of power. Georgia now has the 6th highest electricity bills in the nation. Critics point out that solar and battery storage would have cost about $35 to $50 per megawatt hour, roughly 1/4 of Vogtle's $170 per megawatt hour. That same $36 billion could have built over 4 times as much renewable capacity. So, was it worth it? Plant Vogtle does what it was built to do. It produces massive amounts of clean electricity, it strengthens the grid, and if it runs for 80 years as planned, it will power millions of homes without carbon emissions. But it's also a cautionary tale. It proves that even with unlimited budgets, government backing and decades of planning, megaprojects can spiral out of control when the incentives are misaligned. Georgia families are now paying some of the highest electricity bills in America, not because clean energy is expensive, but because the system rewarded delays instead of results. The real question isn't whether Vogtle works, it's whether America learned anything from building it. What do you think? Could this disaster have been avoided, or was it inevitable from the start? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you want to see more breakdowns of the world's most expensive projects, make sure to subscribe to Design Zip. Thanks for watching.